Something about that voice, I might jump out of my skin every single time. I have put in the chat box, if you can see, the volunteer quick guide. This is also available in the Microsoft Teams. That's kind of the outline that I am using for today, that we are using for today. If you don't know me yet, you probably will by the end of this week. I am Hope Bragg. I am the instructor of 4-H Youth Development, technically Little Rock State office, but I am housed, well, right now at my house, but at University of Arkansas Monticello in lovely Southeast Arkansas. So if you ever need to reach me, the best way to do so is via the cell phone. And I'm joined today with Amy Heck. Amy, you want to introduce yourself?
So I'm Amy Heck. I've been in White County going on 16 years now, and I'm 75% 4-H and 25% ag. I started out just 100% ag and 100% 4-H, and about 5 years ago, they gave me a small percentage of ag to do. So that's me. I'm in my home county. This is where I was raised and went to school. So I like being home.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so today we are going to try to hit the highlights of working with volunteers and things you need to know and do, and basically taking what is typically a 2 to 3 day in service in itself and condense it down into 45 minutes, and I ramble, so even shorter than that probably. And so Amy and I kind of talked a little bit about what were some of the highlights and lowlights, things that we wanted to kind of point out, and we're going to save at the end. We're going to actually give you a takeaway home lesson, some of the volunteer trainings that are available. So at one point we're going to have you quit hiding, so to speak. If you're comfortable with it, turning on your cameras, we're going to play a little game of face charades later at the end of this particular session. And so let's just jump right into it. Amy, keep me on track and feel free to chime in, and everybody else, we all have amazing experiences and all levels of experience working with volunteers. So feel free to chip in, chime in, things that work and don't work with you, so that we can all kind of grow in our experiences with working with volunteers. And I see Jesse is in here, although he's hiding right now, stepped out of the camera. We're going to deal with general 4-H, not so much the shooting sports 4-H volunteers, because shooting sports volunteers have an entirely another level of training that is required of them. So volunteers, how many do we need? What do we need? Each county, it varies, right? It depends on your programs, your project areas, or how many people are even in your county. And so the first thing that I always recommend, and I'm going to share my screen just so you can see where these resources are. Well, let's do it the big way here. Maybe you can see my entire screen here. Let me shut. Oh no, that happens to be the web browser there. Okay, so you're seeing my web browser, I hope. Amy, are you seeing that? Can you give me a thumbs up? Okay, awesome. We're going to go to our vaunted website, the home of everything fit to print, right? And we go into our adults, down here, 4-H volunteers. And in there, you're going to find a lot of your introduction to volunteers for the volunteers themselves, what they need to do as far as getting their checking, registering, and doing their background checks. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And printing out the 4-H guidebook, which, by the way, you're going to get the new improved printed version with the grab bag of materials that'll be coming to you shortly. Complete the mandated report on youth protection. But for your guys' needs when dealing with volunteers, you're going to go back into that staff login side. Remember, never let them remember your passwords. Do as I say, not as I do here. And towards the very bottom of this, you're going to find, I have to go down. They're alphabetical. I should know volunteers should be down here. Volunteer resources. And here's where you're going to find a lot of the materials you need for working with your volunteers, including sample lessons. So these are just like little lessons or things that they can do with their clubs. If you've been to my in-server, Snow White Goes to the Movies, I won't make you do a logic problem today, but these are some really wonderful little logic problems to get your volunteers' brains moving and fun little things. But we're kind of wanting to look at county materials for your volunteers. And right here, you'll see evaluating county program needs. Right now, when our clubs aren't meeting, is an excellent time to kind of just take a look and evaluate everything that's going on in your 4-H program. And so this allows you to look at, who are your people currently involved, and kind of break down how many volunteers you have in each of these areas, and what areas of your community might be strong, which ones are not. Like when I was in Deshay County, we had plenty in McGee because that's where our county office was, but that didn't always translate to Dumas, which was actually a fairly large town. And so you can evaluate, are there communities in your town that you can reach? This is also a good opportunity to look at, are you reaching all of your demographic? Are you within parity with your programs? And so you can kind of look at that and then evaluate, do you have the leaders to reach those programs, right? So see which projects have support, which ones don't. Gradually just take it step by step, and in the end, it'll give you an idea of where to focus on looking for volunteers. The notion is that you don't want to go into a community and just gather tons of volunteers. So you have like 50 potential volunteers in your back pocket. If you don't use your volunteers when the time comes that you need them, and you've recruited them 2 years prior, they're going to think to themselves, well, yeah, you asked me 2 years ago, never used me, why should I come now? So the notion is try not to stockpile or keep them in reserve, but recruit as you need, and have maybe 1 or 2 extra, but try not to overwhelm and overcommit, okay? Because I found that was a trend. Where do you go to find these? The next notion, where do you go to find your volunteers? Anybody have any excellent ways that they have found volunteers in the community? I know you're not this shy, folks.
Just getting out and talking to people, a lot of time at different events, and looking at who's doing or volunteering their time even at your church. Sometimes you can get connected that way with people who already have a heart for service, is what I call it. You can kind of pick out, they're the people who, if they're walking along and they see trash on the ground and pick it up and throw it away, there's somebody who's going to be a natural helper in the area, depending on where you're at.
Okay. Any other tips?
We have asked our county council before if they know of anybody that might be interested. And my livestock club leader, he kind of just fell out of nowhere.
Yeah,
So,
sometimes they do. They fall in your lap, don't they?
Just got lucky on that one, I guess.
Janice, I saw you and Mike. Did you want to share?
Yeah, most of ours, truthfully, are parents or grandparents, so that's a great resource because they are, totally involved and invested.
I was going to say, there's that buy-in, that investment that you get in that. Now, one of the ways I often recruited new clubs or new volunteers was I would be going to the schools themselves on parent-teacher conference days, or if they had a large community event at the school, back when we were in person, right? I would always set up a 4-H table, talk to everybody. This also was an excellent opportunity. I know that I'm blanking on her name, forgive me. Barbara Batiste's office yesterday was talking about your all reasonable efforts. This was also an excellent opportunity to reach those people, that might be interested in joining 4-H, getting your diverse. And I had everybody fill out one of those forms. I didn't care who it was. They filled out the all reasonable effort form. And then I would pull what I needed. So I wasn't singling out anybody to fill out one of those forms. I could pull out what I needed to report to the state office, but then I had a list of all the complete information on potential volunteers, potential 4-Hers to reach out to later. And so there's just one of those little opportunities. In social research, we refer to snowball effect. So we had 4 inches of snow in Southeast Arkansas. I know that you guys got a little bit up north just recently. How do you build a snowball? I know I shouldn't ask this in South. Being from Wisconsin, Michigan, I'm kind of a pro at building a snowball, okay? So you start with a little core, you start with one or two things. And then what do? You roll that snowball up, right? And it gradually gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so the notion of snowball effect in social research or volunteer recruitment in this case is you start with that one key person. And they tell you a couple people that they know that might be interested, and then they tell you a couple people that they might know. And so it just kind of fans out until you get a list of, and it's kind of, you're getting a little bit of recommendation already going into it. Do you have to take everybody who says they want to be a volunteer as a volunteer? Do you have to say yes every time?
No.
Thank you. Thank you, Valerie. I knew I could count on you. No, absolutely not. In fact, you should really go through a process of I hate the term because it's cliche these days, but vet them, make sure that they have good recommendations. We will handle the background checks, and this is a great time for me to mention this probably, right? We recently, you may have seen an email from me that's caused some confusion, a little confusion. We do a criminal background check and a child protective background check. In the past, we would just use the eHire for both of those checks. We send that off to the Department of Human DHS, and they run the background check to make sure that they don't have a history of child neglect, abuse, etc. We used to take that and then send it to the state police, and they would do the criminal background check. But state police, as you are well aware, we are in a bureaucracy ourselves. There's a form for everything. Arkansas State Police now wants us to use their form rather than our form. And so that's why there's that second Arkansas State Police form. You will have them fill that one out as well. At this point, we don't need them both to be notarized. Simply having the notarization on the eHire will suffice at this point. It may change down the line if another person comes into the state police and they say, no, we're kind of beholden to what the state police tell us is what they need for those background checks. So just get right now you can just get that eHire notarized and then send both of those forms back to Central Registry, our Human Resources Department, and they will start that process. When those come back, just so you can kind of have a behind the scenes glimpse, I get all of those and I look at the results, and if they have something that I have a checklist that I go off. And so there's certain things that are just automatic disqualifications, right? We're not going to have murderers, rapists, those kind of things. Then if there's other, and I have another list of, crimes, misdemeanors, and where they fall out as far as risk to children. And I will shoot you or email, or Lynn typically will send you an email saying, yep, hey, they've been approved. We'll update it into your registration, and then they are good to go once they complete the rest of the trainings that we require. Anybody remember what those 3 all-purpose required trainings are? There's only 3. Mandated reporter is one. That is an easy one. They just go to the link I have there, complete it. They give you a certificate. Make sure your agents print that certificate, and you keep that certificate on file in your civil rights folder, because that's one that when you get your civil rights audit, they always look for. So just hold on to those to the end of time, right? Okay, what else? Chaperoning, and that one that's my focus this year, is to update that one. It used to be a 3-part training. We kind of consolidated it into one, and I'm going to update and contemporize that this year. So watch for it. I'll let everyone know when it's there. Chaperone training, and this is handling, and the reason I make that for everybody is that chaperone training actually is risk management, and it's things that every volunteer needs to know, 2 deep leadership, make sure that you're never one-on-one with a child, and just things to keep people safe, and to not only to protect the child, but also to protect that volunteer. So that's why we mandate everybody, well, not mandate, we require everybody to do that. Has anyone had backlash of not letting a person be a volunteer?
I
Billy?
would say in the past, before I started, and I heard a little bit about, they just kind of didn't invite them back to help kind of thing. And just a little bit of not all out hostility, but just some tension with said parent.
So Billy, are you talking about like I rejected them?
Yeah, well, we actually have had this in Baxter County. So we had a person want to be a livestock club leader, and it kind of got out, I guess, and so some people had some reservations about that. And then that person, because we are freedom of information, we had to tell them who, they went to our state office and they had to tell them who said that, or who made that statement. And then it never did go any further, but they threatened to sue that person for defamation.
Mercy. Well, what we do, was that before me, I hope?
Yeah, well, you might have been an agent at that point. It's been a
Okay.
few years, yeah.
I'll say, so we have a process. Like I said, I have this checklist that I use. And if for some reason we reject a volunteer and you're like, well, we know they did this and here's the history, your staff chair and your agent, you can advocate, and there is an appeal process that you can let us know, and we have a system set up. Very rarely does that happen. If I've never experienced what Billy was just explaining, and I dread when I do, because I know it will happen. If you have a volunteer that is causing troubles or issues, we have tools to kind of help you with that. And again, I'll share screen back to our lovely website here. And there is, where is it? Volunteer management. There you can find something here on positive correction of a behavior. And I just realized I did share my screen the right way. So let me new share. And this is just simply to help you kind of go step by step. If you have a volunteer that's giving you issues, you talk to them, you sit with them, talk with them about what they're doing wrong, let them see if they can address it, and just things that you can do to make it so divorcing the behavior from the individual self-worth. It's, Carol, I know it's not like you to typically come to a 4-H meeting covered in excrement. What can we do to help you go beyond actual case that I had to deal with, right? So, you kind of have to work it gingerly, deal with your volunteers, give them positive feedback, help them be part of the plan to improve whatever behavior you're seeing, and then keep on praising them when they do it. Handling volunteers is kind of like handling your teenage daughter or your toddler. Sometimes you have to handle them just like our kids at times, and you'll find that sometimes they act and will bounce back at you just like our kids, right? Amy, do you want to chip in on any experiences you've had? I'm rambling again.
Well, I think of handling volunteers somewhat like coaching a ball team. I think you have to figure out what makes your volunteers tick, and you have to kind of capitalize on those things. And the other thing is, managing volunteers is an ongoing thing. It's a rapport building process. I said I've been here going on 16 years, and there's some of my volunteers that have been with me the whole time. And there's some, that have gotten mad and left and eventually came back, and some that have never come back. So I think just list, when they get to that point where they're unhappy or they're disgruntled or whatever, I had a lady tell me one time when I first started that 99% of the time people just want to be heard. They just want to be able to tell you how they feel and why they feel that way. So I've always remembered that. And when I have issues, and I mean, it's not always sunshine and roses here in White County as far as, our volunteers go. but I've always tried to remember that piece of advice. And, you know, when they come in here and they shut my door and sit down, I immediately, my stomach, you know, gets a knot and I'm like, oh gosh, what now, you know? But 9 times out of 10, they just want to be heard. And so I feel like that's one way that you can address handling issues is to just listen, whether you agree or not, listen to them, let them have their say, and then, you know, then we sit down and we figure out, okay, where do we go from here? But it happens. I mean, all of us that have worked for Extension know that you've got volunteers that are gonna get on your last nerve and make you want to pull your hair out. But I think how we handle those situations determines the rapport and the relationships down the road. Whenever, and that goes back to what you said earlier, Hope, about when we really need them. So,
Right. You know, the other thing is sometimes you'll have those volunteers that are really go-getters and they want to do everything, but maybe they just don't work well with kids. That doesn't mean we turn them away, but you can always find other tasks in your office or in your 4-H program that they can do. I mean, I know that I was always reluctant to let go of things, right? You know, just part of my nature. Jesse's here, he can tell you I don't delegate well, right? So, but I found myself delegating a little more to some of my volunteers, because the other thing I don't really do well is ask for money, right? So I had a volunteer who didn't work well with kids. She really didn't need to be in there with those children. She passed all the tests. She was really, I mean, she was capable, but I had her work behind the scenes. So she helped me with fundraising and collecting toner cartridges from across the county and little ways to help the 4-H program without maybe being the face of 4-H or working one-on-one with kids and that nature. So there's other tasks we can delegate, which, like I said, I'm do as I say, not as I do, right? I'm not the best, but what are some of the things you think you could delegate to volunteers that aren't just working with youth? Anybody already doing this?
Miss Hope, I have one that it's not because she can't get along with, but she's ill and can't come around everybody. So we email stuff back and forth, and she helped put together our fundraiser cookbook, and she's helped with backdrops for our Christmas party 2 years ago, different things like that.
Wonderful, yeah. Okay. Billy, I saw you on mic.
I was just gonna say, I'm not good at asking for money, and I do have a volunteer that has come in. She's also our work only when needed, and she has told me that she's good with getting money, but she come on kind of right as COVID was coming in, so she hasn't really got to utilize her talents yet.
A lot of times our volunteers are professionals like we are, right? I mean, I know that Jesse called me out. When I'm not doing this, I'm volunteering for Boy Scouts or 4-H or my church and archaeology. You know, we all volunteer. And so I might not be in front, but I can write a mean newsletter. You know, that's part of what we do in our jobs. And, you know, some of our volunteers are also professionals that could maybe help us with some of those tasks that take up a lot of our time, and it's hard to let go. I'm not gonna lie, it is hard to let that go, but you'll find it'll relieve the tension on you. Those volunteers want to support you, and perhaps that's the way that they can provide that support. Think about, we all, well, I'm gonna make a broad assumption. I think that we all volunteer. Do we not? I mean, I just listed off at least 5 things that I volunteer when I'm not here, right? Think about why we are volunteers. Why do we volunteer? What do we hope to gain out of that? Because that helps you determine, if you know what the motivations of those people who are wanting to volunteer and work with us in 4-H, knowing that will help guide how you use those volunteers. You know, and also that ties into the next level of recognizing those volunteers. You know, you might have somebody who wants to be the face of 4-H, who lives off the accolade, and so you'd handle those people and award those people in a much different way than somebody who's content to just kind of be in the background sidelines, making the program the best making the best better, right? We're content with being in the background and bolstering it up for our youth. I'd like to hear some of the ways that our counties across the state, because we have every corner of the state represented in this room. I would like to hear some of the ways you guys are recognizing your volunteers.
Well, a few years ago, I think it's important to recognize people and make people feel appreciated. I think that makes a huge, tremendous difference in anybody's want to be involved with an organization or volunteer, as if they're truly appreciated. So we did a thing. I've tried tons of different ways to do this. And one day I was like, I'm just going to send out a survey and ask them. And almost all of my volunteers, they really just wanted like the simple things. Like they just wanted a t-shirt and to see the kids succeed. Like that's really all they wanted. I asked them if they wanted, gift cards. We've done like nights where we've done like a taco night, and we've done a ton of things. We've went to restaurants and done celebrations where we just kind of made fun awards, like based on the person's personality. Like maybe we have one lady that's real creative and she always does all our backdrops for everything. And so we gave her some paintbrushes or something like that. And they felt so special, one, because they never really get focused on, but they don't want to be focused on. They want to celebrate, they want to do things, but they really a lot of mine prefer to be in the background opposed to being the person focused on. So like going out to dinner together, it was more like a social thing. So they really appreciate things like that. And like I said, little things, like they just want a t-shirt, and like they don't want huge recognition. And I always try to find the ways, and I've been here a long time, so I know my volunteers really well, and so I know their families, I know what they like, I know what they don't like, and so that helps tremendously. But I know when I first started in this county, having an agent that like Miss Pickle, who's very, very dominant personality type, she had certain volunteers that loved her, and when I came along, they did not like me. I mean, they like me at all, and it was just a personality conflict. I mean, they were never going to like me, and so I think sometimes you have to just accept that, like, you're not always going to mesh with everyone either. I mean, you can still work together and you can still be civil, but they're not going to like you as a person. And I've had a few like that, and their kids graduated of our program, and they still donate to this program, but no, we went to State-O-Rama, we did stuff together, but no, they never liked me. So I think you have to, and I think the longer you're in a county, the more you build relationships, you'll have volunteers that they like you. They volunteer because they like you, they like what you're doing, they like what they see their kids doing. And so I think that can be a really hard transition for new agents, that the person that recruited those, kind of like a new football coach, the person that recruited that team is no longer there, and you're stuck with this team. So I think that sometimes you just have to be like, okay, just got to get along and we'll get through this.
That's definitely something for our new agents in the room here to realize, is that it's going to take a while for them to accept you. You're going to live in the shadow. 5 years in the county when I was there, and I was still hearing that's not how AJ did it, right? So he was my predecessor, and it's going to take a while for that project to become your own. Elizabeth, I see you on mic. Do you want to share about how you recognize some of yours?
Yeah, so I recognize my volunteers in a variety of ways. I always, when we do like our award banquets for our kids, we always have a special section where the kids thank their volunteers. This does not come from me. My kids plan whatever they give the kids. They plan whatever they say. It comes from the kids, and that's what makes it special. From me, when I thank my volunteers, if they're helping, I don't care what they're helping out. If it's a RAMA, if it's something, I always send a handwritten thank you note. It is a pain. It takes a lot of time. Those volunteers treasure those handwritten thank you notes. They don't cost much. It's just your time and actually pinning down what you're appreciating about what that volunteer did. They love it. I guess they don't want like a big hoorah, but I always do once a year, it's more like a social gathering. Take them out to like Red Lobster or an expensive place that they don't normally get to go to. We travel a mile away, either to Memphis or to Jonesboro, and we give them a nice thank you dinner. just a quick short spill. We appreciate you. We thank you. And then it's more fellowship amongst our volunteers, just to get them talking to each other and letting them know that we really do appreciate them.
One of the things, building on Elizabeth, that handwritten thank you note definitely goes a long, long ways to the volunteers. But sometimes even taking that handwritten thank you note and thanking a spouse or the employer of that volunteer, just letting them know how much they do for the community and for the youth in your county goes a long ways too. And it really makes some of the volunteers, hey, when you're telling the boss, it's kind of like when you write somebody a letter, you write a letter to a kid saying they did a good job, and you send a letter to mom saying, hey, your kid did a good job, right? Or when our first speaker was there and he was complimenting, and Valerie happens to be here. What did he do? I want to send this to your mom, right? It adds that little extra to something. We have resources, again, hey, there's a sheet for everything, right? So in that page is a listing here of volunteer recognition ideas. And these are things that if you have money, awesome. A lot of times we in the counties don't have a lot of money to take a bunch of people. Elizabeth, forgive me, Red Lobster was way out of my budget when I was in the county, right? So there's ways, in inexpensive ways and small ideas. And it doesn't have to be just a one-time event. Sometimes it's just, you're in Walmart and you see them. Don't run away. Say, thank you. Hey, glad to have you on the team, right? And this sheet continues, so you can go and print down. There's also little fun pun gifts. That's always been a kind of a hit, giving nobody can hold a candle to you, or thanks for burning the candle at both ends to help 4-H succeed. Little fun, cheap little gifts you can give out, just little tokens of recognition that you can give throughout your programs. And so
what number did you say that was?
What that sheet is?
Uh-huh.
That is back in our website. Let me share, I'll walk you right to it. So you go into our website there for volunteer resource. So this is in the employee only section, staff page, staff resources. And you scroll on down to where it says volunteer resources, volunteer management. And right here is recognition of 4-H volunteers. And so that'll give you a pile of information to utilize with your volunteers. Okay?
I hope.
Yes, ma'am.
So at my banquet every year, if I've got new leaders that are coming in, I always get them a t-shirt because, we want them to advertise for us as well. And then like second year, sometimes I'll get them like more of a polo shirt. And then when they retire, I usually try to get them something. I think I've gotten like a crystal trophy sort of thing, the last one. But I do have problems coming up with ideas on kind of like gifts. I've given them umbrellas, big, huge umbrellas. I can't remember what all I've given them.
If you guys are anything like me, you'll get a phone call that says, hey, Elizabeth Easley gave me your name. We would love to sell you things from River City, whatever it is, the place in Memphis that sells this way. And they always say, well, it used to be they would always throw Cynthia Rory under the bus. And, she lived in West Memphis, so I figured it must be true, right? But they'll always throw in, Cynthia told me to call you, or Elizabeth told me to call you.
Or they'll fool your secretaries because they'll act like they know you, and my secretary will constantly put them through. And I'm like, no, I don't want anything from River City Supply.
Old Brittany.
Yep.
They also change their phone number periodically or something.
Yeah, they got my personal cell phone. That was I had to put an end to that one. I think I may have blocked River City. But I digress again. Okay. Amy, what else do we need to cover?
Well, just a couple of things I was going to mention as far as recognition. We have done volunteer appreciation dinners, but it seems that over the last couple of years, our parents, they're just so busy. And so, it got to the point where we just didn't have the turnout that we wanted. So we decided to just recognize those volunteers at our awards banquet. And we give out a Friend of 4-H award, which really normally would go more to a indirect volunteer, and then alumni of the year and volunteer of the year award. And we recognize them with engraved clocks or an engraved pin set or something like that. We also, when we were off, we were home for quarantine, we highlighted those volunteers on our social media, just kind of giving them some recognition that way. We do the thank you cards also as well, but that's kind of what we do as far as recognition. Some of the other things that we do just well, it's something that just kind of developed as far as our adults and our volunteers. I noticed that we had one volunteer who just started taking some of these younger club leaders under their wing, and it just happened naturally. And then I got to looking and noticing, and I thought, well, that's not a bad idea. So that's one of the things too that we try to do is when I get a new club leader, I'll kind of try to pair them up with a more tenured club leader to kind of help mentor them, and that has seemed to work pretty well here also. We try to do monthly meetings. Of course, right now we're not, but tonight we are having a roundtable discussion with our volunteers to kind of help plan for, where do we go from here? And I've been working on this agenda for about a week. So it went from having 3 or 4 bullet points of things to discuss to like 10 things. So I'm probably gonna have to break this meeting into 2 different meetings and have another one. But I think, overall, just keeping them in the loop and keeping them engaged and informed, I think that's the key. I mean, there's not one particular thing that makes you have a successful volunteer program. It's just, treating them like people and listening and trying to give them what they need to succeed. And it all goes back to that rapport and relationships. And some days I feel like a county agent, some days I feel like a therapist, when dealing with my volunteers, but I just think that's part of it. And that's kind of what we have to do.
Amy, they want to know if you're doing your leader roundtable in person or virtual tonight.
Both. I have 8 or 9 that will be attending face-to-face, and then I have some that will be Zooming in with us.
So we have about 8 more minutes left. And one of the things Amy just mentioned is keeping our volunteers engaged. And we started off saying we have only those 3 mandated trainings. That doesn't mean that we just throw them to the wolves after that. We want to keep our volunteers continued, getting them the trainings and things to help them succeed as volunteers. We want to set our volunteers up for success, not for failure. And so one of those things that we can do is provide extra trainings. And so I see many of you guys that were here earlier. We have things like essential elements or the ready to go volunteer training materials that we had at this recent volunteer in service. And there's another set of really easy short lessons that you can do with your volunteers. And I was kind of going to review with you one of those lessons today. And these are called the VRKC, which is the volunteer, I can always remember it. Volunteer research, knowledge, competency, and taxonomy. Nobody wants to know that, right? It's just how we train our volunteers to do things. And I'm going to run through a really short lesson. These are totally scripted, so they're really easy to utilize. I mean, even the words are there for you, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about nonverbal skills today. It starts off, we are constantly communicating with each other. Hold tight. And it tells you what slide to be on, and I wasn't paying attention, right? So we are constantly communicating with each other. Even when we stop talking, we are communicating through nonverbal cues. Research indicates that 93% of communication is nonverbal. Although we may stop talking, our facial expressions, posture, gestures, and other nonverbal behaviors provide additional information to those who are truly listening. Listening in the sense of looking for meaning beyond the spoken word. Nonverbal behavior provides a wealth of information about the speaker and helps the listener understand what is being communicated. Uh-oh. You guys, technology phobe here. Here we go. All right. One of the best ways to become aware of nonverbal communication is to observe others. Watch for facial expressions. What emotions do you see? Happy, sad, confused, interested, or bored? Posture. Overpowering, in your face, shy or distant, tense, relaxed, high or low energy. I think I am on the wrong side. What are they doing with their hands? Do they have clenched fists, fidgeting, tapping their fingers? What are they doing with their body? Are they flailing their arms, stomping their feet, slamming the door, pounding the table, gently touching someone's arm or shoulder? Do they have eye contact? Do they connect through eye contact, or do they drop their eyes and look away? Breathing patterns. Are they relaxed or short, quick breaths? And even the space between each other. Do they stand close or seem to be more comfortable with large space between them and others? Oh, see, I was off a slide. Forgive me, folks. See, trying to see things from an outsider's perspective can help give you a feel of what is going on in a group. You may pick up on things that might not be obvious to you as a group member. Take a step back from your group and watch for nonverbal behaviors. Are people tense and uncomfortable? Are group members gradually withdrawing from discussion or participation? Is the group work being dominated by one person or a subgroup? Observe who talks to whom and participants' reactions during the conversations. Watch to see who keeps the meeting moving by keeping members focused on the topic and not the discussion that leads nowhere. As members speak, observe how others react to them. Is there a feeling of support? Is anyone made to feel like his or her opinion is not valued? Is anyone hampering the discussion or blocking decision making with body language? And so with that is nice, effective ways to use your communication. We're going to move on. So that's how these simple lessons are totally scripted. You can pull and not pull. These are available on our website and they are going to be updated in June. So I am hoping to do an in-service this year where we roll out all of the new improved VRKC lessons for agents to use in the county. These are kind of things that you can do during the club. We're going to play charades now. And so we're going to try your hand at facial cues. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to utilize the chat box and I'm going to call on somebody to demonstrate a facial expression or body language that exemplifies a nonverbal cue. And so, Janice, I see you right handy. Let's see, I'm going to grab you right away. And I want you to do your face or body charade for that. And anyone shout out when you know what she is.
Frustrated.
Not quite.
Angry.
Angry gets it. Okay. Billy?
I don't know about you all, but when I'm frustrated, I'm normally angry.
Well, that's true. Let's see. Billy, I need to give you one. You had to. All right, here comes Billy's. Anyone guess what Billy is? Come on. Overjoyed. I think, Jesse, we need to do a refresher course.
I can't find her on my screen. Where'd she go?
All right, let me pin her. Let me spotlight.
There she is.
All right. Okay, Billy, give us
Are
your.
you sad? Sad.
Yes, I'm sad.
Okay. All right, here comes Isaac. Let me see if I can
You
unpin
can stop
Billy.
now, Jesse.
Here comes Isaac. I need to see if I can unpin Billy.
Listen, that one's hard. So if somebody gets close to it, I'm just gonna let them.
Okay, let's see it.
Well, it's.
All right, I'll make it smaller words for you.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was gonna give them, anyways.
Of course, Isaac always has this face.
Happy?
What was that?
Happy?
Happy.
Oh, I was waiting for him to make the face.
Say, having taken him to CWF, one of my former 4-Hers, or, I've always seen him in a happy face. I think I need to stump Jess. I think we need to make Jesse make a face. So let me see. Let me pull Jesse. And we're going to give him a big 10-cent word. Do I need to translate that, Jesse?
Yes, that's you're over my education level here.
There
Hold
we
on.
go.
Let me get in the right frame of mind here.
Give us some
Here
other
he is.
body language cues, dude.
Jesse, you look a little checked out.
Not interested.
Crap.
That's the exact opposite, Jesse.
I'm gonna, are you kidding me?
You're engaged, interested.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm way off on that. I need to. I'm not the actor of the group, apparently.
he should have posed for us. Yeah,
Thinking.
thoughtful. He was trying to be thoughtful. I guess that's why I Elizabeth Easley.
The original word was pensive. I didn't even know what that meant.
Mercy. Well, guys, it is now 7:15 and I really don't want to keep you. Please feel free to use those resources. Watch for future in-services on volunteer management as we make them available. As always, please, 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 communications 2 ways. Talk to me, let me know what your needs are, and we'll try to make things happen, okay? Yes, mandatory. The third training. It's the orientation book, which I'm sending to you. So every volunteer should get that orientation guide. They can download it and go through basic training of what 4-H is. Sorry, Cindy. I forgot how to count to 3.
Hey, Hope,
Yes, Billy.
on the our agent deal online, the volunteer leader screening package, there's some like stuff for signatures. Are we supposed to have that? Is that not the same thing that they do online except for the e-hire?
So with the new volunteer screening package, are you talking about how I have the Arkansas State Police form and the e-hire?
No, so the Arkansas volunteer screening authorization, it's got a deal in here. You put their name and their date of birth and 5 digits of social security number, and I agree. And it's got the e-hire and then mandated reporter training. And then at the bottom, what is that titled? Volunteer agreement, where your signatures, are they
So
not doing that?
that volunteer agreement is just something for you guys to keep in your county if you want to, and that's just a way so that they know what their responsibilities are as a volunteer and what your responsibilities as an agent are to that volunteer. It's just a way to kind of define your roles. And I'd always made, you should probably, that should be signed. And I think that's part of, they do sign that when they are in registering for RegPac. And if they aren't, I'll make sure that that's part of the registration process.
Okay, are you gonna add that new report thing in here as well?
The state police form?
Yeah, underneath
Should be
the
there.
e-hire. I think it's in here, but do you want to add it to this package so that we have everything? Because
The package that's on the website, or which?
yeah, the 4-H leader screening packet, it says 2020. Because I could just like print this off and then hand it to them and say, hey, make sure you sign everything. And then there's a few things that need to be returned from that.
Okay, I will get with you. I want to make sure I know where this packet is so that I'm correcting the right thing. So many windows open here right now.
County materials for volunteer programs.
Oh,
Is there
on the employee side.
Yeah, the employee side.
Okay. Yeah, I will go through and update all of that.
Because I know that's a new thing that we have to do, so.
Yep, yeah, and I'll try to get that, I will try to get that updated and up. Because it's, and you know, and unfortunately, it also impacts our handbook. I am diligently working to try to get it back down to where we just use the e-hire form and don't have to do both forms, but right now, people who are in a higher pay bracket have better ideas, so.
And just to make this clear, like that normally needs to be notarized, but since we notarize the e-hire, we do not have to notarize this new form, right?
That is absolutely right at this point. And also you do not need to get them fingerprinted. It's just the form. We don't do FBI checks. We just do the,
Is that what the fingerprints are for, FBI check?
yeah, fingerprints are for FBI checks. That's what they use with school teachers. So they use the same form for whoever and whatever.
All right.
I'm reading body language there, Billy. Take a nap. All right, folks, I'm not going to keep you. If you have any further questions, feel free to shout out. Be sure to attend the closing ceremony so you can win some cool swag. And we will be delivering materials to you soon. All right, I'll shut this room down. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Hope. I appreciate you asking me to help.
Oh, I appreciate your help every time. Sherry coming back? Are you coming back? Hey, Union County.